Hi everyone, Alon Lits here from October Health. Really excited to have Almero Oosthuizen with me. He's the Chief Product Officer for EasyEquities, and he's got an amazing story, one of South Africa's greatest success stories from an entrepreneurial perspective. Really excited to have you with me.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So always love to kick this off, just giving our audience some context and your background.
Sure.
And a bit of, we can start then touching on the Easy story.
Yeah. So I've been, I've been with the Purple Group and EasyEquities for 16 years now. So I've been around for a while. Initially started my journey with the group inside marketing. So as a group head of marketing. And then migrated from marketing into UX and leading up our customer experience team and UX team. And then most recently into product design and product development, and then becoming the Chief Product Officer for the group.
Awesome. So not a traditional background or career put into product. I mean, obviously UX to product makes more sense, but marketing to product not as common.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of stuff that where your career sort of push you into different avenues. And especially, and we'll talk about the journey of EasyEquities, and maybe some of that will make more sense of how I ended up in product from marketing. But yeah, it is pretty exciting how your career can change through the course of your life, and it's even more interesting that it happens within a same group. So yeah, happy to explain that a bit more in detail.
Yeah. So as you said, I think what's probably a good kind of point to focus on is this Purple Group or EasyEquity story, and then weaving that back into your earnings.
Yeah. So maybe I'll start way back from when I joined the group. So it was just after the global financial crisis, which obviously happened in 2008. And I got approached, or actually got introduced to Charles Savage, who's the CEO of the group, through a mutual friend. And at the time, they were looking for a group head of marketing. I've been in kind of marketing space. My background, I studied at Stellenbosch. I majored in marketing, but I studied financial services as kind of a BCom in financial management. And yeah, the one thing led to another. I had a conversation with Charles. We created, there was an affinity between our kind of thinking around business, etc. And I ended up getting the role as group head of marketing. At the time, inside the business was, the holding company was still a Purple Group, but the business I looked after was Global Trader, which is now GT247, which is a derivatives trading business. Funny enough, I didn't know anything about it, but so I had to learn all about CFDs and spreads and sophisticated trading instruments, which was quite tricky, but exciting at the same time. And had a great time looking after that business unit, growing it. It was tough, like I said, it was just after the financial crisis.
And people have been burned quite
hard.
And
that's space. And then just to put it in perspective as well, as a group, so pre-financial crisis, we operated in multiple countries around the globe. I think we were in over 20 countries around the globe. And post-financial crisis, we consolidated in South Africa. All our international business got shut down. The business itself got burned fairly badly. And we came back to South Africa, focused on the specific market. This is where the business started, essentially, in any case, and rebuilt the business from scratch. So it was tough times, challenging, but exciting at the same time. So then from there, the business actually evolved, and we expanded into different verticals. So we created an asset manager. So Impra Asset Management was the asset manager we created. And then subsequent to that, we also dabbled a bit in the sports betting space. So which is interesting. You think like financial services and sports betting probably doesn't go hand in hand. But if you think of the derivatives trading space, which is it's like a bit of a betting market as well. We thought that it was definitely a crossover between that customer base and sports betting. But we realized that sports betting wasn't going to be part of our feature when we created EasyEquities, and we'll talk about EasyEquities in a second. And then sold our sports betting business to Sun International, and today that business is called Sunbet.
Okay.
Doing really well. We probably sold out a little bit early, considering what sports betting is doing at the moment. But yeah, it wasn't gonna be
Core.
that core of the business. It was fun to play in that space, but once we created EasyEquities, there was a kind of clash between the purpose we wanted to create in EasyEquities, and maybe I'll unpack EasyEquities now. So EasyEquities was born on a beach in Mozambique by Charles Savage. So Charles, our CEO, he holidays in Mozambique on December's.
Okay.
And we've had conversations previously around, we wanted to create a solutional business that gives us purpose. The derivatives trading business was a great business, but it wasn't a business that gave you purpose when you get up in the morning. So I'm going to change the world by offering derivatives to customers. So there was that kind of thing that we struggled with and we wanted to unlock. And when we started looking at what was happening on a global stage, this was the very beginning of fintech. Fintech wasn't really even a term at the time. But there was murmurings of like people moving into this space. So just Robinhood more or less started at the same time as us. So you could see that there was a change in direction around what's happening in financial services. So long story short, Charles came back after his holiday in Mozambique in 2014, and he gathered a few of us. It was 5 of us together with this idea saying, like, we're going to change the landscape of investing in South Africa. We're going to debunk all these myths, and we're going to make it super easy for people to start investing. And we all were like, okay, well, how are we going to do that? But we were all very excited and shared his enthusiasm around it. And started, applying our minds around what we can do and how can we do things different to what the market was doing at the time. So, and one of the biggest things that stood out was the industry was littered with all these costs. So it was impossible for people with small amounts of money to start an investment journey. So if you had 100 Rand, to put it in perspective, and you wanted to go and open up a stockbroking account, and the main players were most of the banks. Obviously, they dabbled in that space, or they offered services in that space. But the cost was just prohibitive. So the minimum trade values or costs was around between 80 and 120 Rand, depending on who you were investing with. And then there were monthly costs, et cetera, et cetera. So your 100 Rand or even your 1,000 Rand, if you had to place one trade a month with your 1,000 Rand and you had to pay 100 Rand a cost, that's 10% of your investment eroded by cost. So there was a good reason why people weren't doing it, because of, all the mass population weren't doing it. It was only earmarked for the secluded few. So that was very apparent to us. And so we knew that if we wanted to change the status quo, that was something that we're going to have to address aggressively. The other thing was this kind of, the industry was littered with these terms and naming conventions that was foreign to most people. I've got friends that are actuaries and CAs that were just scared to start investing. They just felt like they were too stupid and like, this is not for us. This is for professionals. So we had to kind of eliminate that. And then lastly, the interfaces weren't easy. So we always use this analogy, like the interfaces were these cockpits for Boeings, but we were all Cessna pilots. And like, how do you actually operate this thing? And we actually came from that space. So in the derivative space, our trading platforms were super sophisticated. It could do anything. You could launch satellites with these things. But it just didn't address the market need. So that's where we started. We tried to create a solution that was, addressing all those pain points. So firstly, we started with a cost, made it very, very cheap, to a point where it was hard to justify a business model for this. Like, people were asking us, how are you actually going to make money? And fortunately, we had a really supportive board, and we knew we could make money eventually from it, but it had to be at scale. So we had to back ourselves that we're actually going to get to scale. And our board supported us in that, because it was, didn't really look very promising. When you change the fee structure from previously 100 Rand per trade to 25 cents per 100 Rand invested, 25 basis points. You're going to have a lot of customers to make that work. But we backed ourselves. So we drastically made a change to how things are priced within the platform experience. And then dumb down the experience in terms of how to buy your first share, and try to make it as easy as possible in terms of the language that we use, so the communication, the emails that we use when we send out to a customer. And then once we've done all of this, we decided to test this with the market. I mean, we were engaging with our customers along the way to ensure that we're creating the solution that would create some sort of affinity with them. But the ultimate test for us was to launch a game where we put it into production and let real users come in and experience it. And we did that. I think it was in August 2014 is when we launched our game. We had 2,000 game players, and there were some nice prizes. And the purpose of the game was to get feedback from our customers and get them to engage with the product. And out of those 2,000 game players, I think we got 2,500 bits of feedback back on them, which was super engaging.
Sure.
And probably 90% of that was telling us how hard it still was. So we were like, we tried our best, but it's still really hard. So we after the game, and it was super valuable. I mean, we were literally building a product in parallel with our users, which was new. And previously products were built in boardrooms, and that was a real good lesson for us in terms of how to build product going forward as well. But after the game, we shut down the platform. We said we have to go back to the drawing board. Yeah, so we kind of shut it down and said, let's go back to the drawing board, but let's be very quick about this. And then we relaunch into live production. So within, I think it was about 4 weeks, we addressed as many of those pain points as possible. And then we relaunched the product. And it was very well received within this community base of customers. One thing that was outstanding, however, was the fact that, we made it super cheap, we made it easy, and changed the way that investments are being made on a platform. But what we didn't address was the small investor store, because the small investor, a guy with 100 Rand, wanted to buy the shares that are meaningful, the blue chip shares on the JSE. And I mean, if you take Naspers as an example, I think at the time Naspers was probably about 1,500 Rand a share. So if you wanted to buy a Naspers share with your 100 Rand, it was impossible. You had to put that 100 Rand away and save it for 15 months, and then you can buy your first Naspers share. And we didn't feel like that was right. Like, how can we address that and make it more equitable for everyone to participate in any instrument or any company? So we had to come up with a way to do that. And the way to do that was to create fractional shares. Now, fractional shares have been around in the US since the beginning of the exchange. It was just never, we were never able to trade them digitally. So, but as far as we know, I think the US and I think the Canadian exchange is the only exchanges in the world where you can actually buy own fractions on exchange. I mean, that's typical of the Yanks. They wanted to be fair. So when there's a corporate action and you end up with a fraction, they wanted to let you own that fraction. Whereas in South Africa, often those things are settled in cash or rounded up or down. So it was a new concept. And we knew we had to do the same for South Africa, but how are we going to do that? And also part of the reason for that was you created this. We call it shopping center for shares or supermarket for shares, and the rich can shop in all the aisles and the poor can only shop, or the people with small amounts of money can only shop in aisle 1 to 5. So that wasn't very democratizing, and that's what we wanted to achieve, is really democratize access to investment. So we look back at our history within the derivatives and CFD space, and we realized that we could use a 100% margin CFD, which is a derivative product, to give a user ownership of a fraction and use that mechanism to enable fractions. So you can own a piece of a share through this contract that you have, and we're the counterparty in the contract. And I'll talk about that in a second. But and you can have all the benefits on that fraction as if you've got the full share. So when you earn dividends, you earn it in proportion to the fraction that you own. The only thing we haven't done yet is to give you voting rights on that fraction. But until it's not that meaningful to have voting rights.
Exactly sway then.
No, it's not exactly going to sway. So, but I mean, it's 100% possible. And that just and it was a hard-fought battle to get fractions over the line because it was this foreign concept, especially using a derivative to enable it. So we had to propose this to FSCA, the regulators, etc. And it took a few weeks and a few hard meetings to get that over the line. But eventually we got it over the line, and people recognized what benefit this could provide to customers. And that was really the catalyst for all of this. Without fractions, I don't think we would have been able to scale it to where we scaled the business today. So in October 2014, we launched the business officially.
And fractions
came a little bit later. Okay. And once fractions was available, it created talkability, and our customers started referring other customers. And we built that customer base up from 2,000 game players into 10,000 customers in the first year.
Sure.
Which we were very excited about. But yeah, and what excited us even more was the fact that these customers became evangelists for the brand. So they were referring other customers constantly, So, and in a startup, your greatest marketing force is essentially your customers, and also your biggest Achilles heel is your cost of acquisition. So if you can get a mechanism to enable cost of acquisition and access to distribution, that's the holy grail. And our customers started becoming our marketing force, which is really cool. So I think even still today, 60% of our customers arrive as a result of a referral from another customer, which is very high, and it speaks to the trust of the customers within the platform. So fast forward a little bit from there. So the business started to grow. The customer base was growing. We expanded on the product offering. So about 2 to 3 years later, we added US shares to the platform. So initially when we started, it was only South African shares. We then added US shares. We created a great partnership with Sanlam, Satrix. So Satrix, the current Satrix investment platform, was a white label of EasyEquities. And that was really great to be able to have access to another distribution channel. And also Sanlam, subsequent to that, invested in the business. So we were raising money. As you can imagine, like the 25 cents to 100 rand, it's not going to take you very far. We needed some cash. So we raised some money and we in Sanlam participated in the round. So we raised 100 million rand for 30% of EasyEquities, which was pretty great for us at the time to get that support. And they're still great supporters of the business today. And if you look at where the business is today, currently just over 2 million registrations on the platform. The company, over 1 million of those registrations are active on the platform. We've got a very diverse product breadth. So we don't just offer local and international stocks. We've got crypto, we've got insurance on the platform, we've got credit,
sure.
We've got property, access to fractional property. So really expanded the offering, and we continue to do that. So there's more exciting products in the pipeline. What we're very proud of is the fact that our customer base looks like South Africa as well. It's super diverse, true representation of the demographic of the country. We've also made some great strides into getting an equal gender-based investment universe of customers. So when we started, probably 70% of our customers were male, 30% female. That number is now close to kind of 58% male, 42% female. So, and funny enough, females are much better investors than males.
Is that because they're risk-seeking or risk-averse?
I think maybe because they're probably a little bit more risk-averse and maybe they're things through a bit more.
Not as emotional.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Following the trends maybe after the fact.
Yeah. So but those things we're very proud of. And also the fact that we're getting young people to invest. The average customer age is still 32 on the platform. But we've got over 50,000, I think it's 55,000 kids under 18 on the platform.
Okay.
that are making meaningful investments. So it could be parents opening up a tax-free savings account for their newborn babies, and I would encourage everyone to do that if they've got kids. But what we've also seen is kids taking their pocket money, starting to invest, and the best way to learn is really through experiences. So we've got super bright, smart kids making investment decisions on the platform using real money, which is really great. So we've got this amazing platform in South Africa. Part of our opportunity is also to take this business abroad. So we've expanded our actual business horizons across the water we've got a business in Australia. So a small business in Australia. Funny, unfortunately it was launched literally the day before COVID. So we couldn't take advantage of that COVID hype at the time. But yeah, we've got a business unit in Australia, but the Philippines and Southeast Asia is also a very exciting market for us. And we've been working hard and getting that off the ground. We've got a big portion of our staff. We're 70 staff members sitting in Manila, mainly on our engineering side. But yeah, probably it's more than a third of our staff sitting in Manila. And then also Africa, the rest of Africa is another opportunity. We've just recently got licensed in Kenya. So East Africa is an opportunity set that we want to unlock. And we're working hard with the regulators there and some of the local providers to go live with our offering in Kenya over the next few weeks. So that's I was going to say in a nutshell, but I spoke for a long time.
I know that's super valuable. And I think going back to your earlier comment really puts into context this evolution from marketing to product.
Really so in this evolution is obviously because I was part of this founding team of EasyEquities where the focus was mainly around firstly user experience. Like how can we make this the most effective user and friendly user experience? So that's where a lot of my focus was. And then as the platform evolved and we added new product, that pushed me into product development and product innovation. And that's how my career evolved, from initially from marketing into user experience and then product. Yeah.
I think also you've shared so much really the playbook for a startup around I guess the first point for me, which was interesting, is like everything that you did before kind of led up to you being able to deliver the product in its finished form, right? Like maybe at the time, you left that derivatives business behind or deprioritized that, but it played a key role in your ability to deliver on the EasyEquity vision.
Yeah. I liked every step in my career path that compounded into another opportunity. And like you say, referencing other things that's relevant in every new step is great.
Yeah. So the dots kind of connect backwards sometimes.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I think the other point around disrupting kind of traditional industries also like classic, startup, and no one's done it better in this space. So really congrats to you and the team.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, it's unusual to have a startup within a listed entity, which was a bit crazy, but it was a great opportunity, I guess, as well at the same time.
Yeah, and I think also to your point, testament to your board that they were willing to take those future bets to future-proof the future of the business, right?
Yeah, no, I must give them a lot of credit for having that vision or supporting our vision at least.
And then the final point for me is just this point around, product iteration, right? And being able to not just test in theory, because to your point, these, whether you're thinking about a startup, whether you're within a corporate and thinking about launching a new product, you can die by spreadsheet or by PowerPoint, right? Living in this world of theory, right? And you have the best theoretical product, but you never actually test it in the market.
Yeah, that's very important. And like I said initially, when we started the business and we created that game environment, that was the playbook for us that we knew we had to create or enable for future product as well. So what we do in the business is we have a big survey to our customers once a year to get an understanding of how they're experiencing the existing platform. Are there any future products that they might consider? And I'll use EasyProperties as a good example in that space. So one of our annual surveys, it became very apparent that customers wanted to have access to residential property. They knew they could buy it as REITs on the exchange, and then but they didn't have the ability to go and take, the plunge in buying a residential, investment unit in a flat building. But they felt like they had to have some sort of exposure in that space. And they made it very clear in terms of when we asked our customers, what's the other products and future products that you consider that you would like to invest in? And that brought us to, how can we enable that through our fractional investing engine? And that was the birth of Easy Properties. So what we do in Easy Properties is we fractionalize residential units into small bits of shares that you as an individual can own. So you can take your 500 Rand or your 100 Rand, and I can own a piece of a flat or unit in Cape Town or in Bryanston or wherever. And I can earn a return on that investment as we rent those units out. And the yield or the dividends are those rental incomes, or piece of rental income is paid as dividends to the customer. So that was and that 100% came from within the customer. We wouldn't have thought about, creating a fractional property platform that wasn't for the customers. And then maybe just to talk to how our design process so we very much follow a design thinking methodology for product within the business. And then if you think of design thinking, it starts with empathy. So it starts with empathizing with your customer base and understanding what are the pain points that you're trying to solve. And this was a good example. So the pain point was, they want to own residential access, or they want to have access to residential property with a small amount of money. And then from there, once you empathize with them, you define what is the actual pain point that we're solving for. So there's a process of definition that goes in there where we collaborate with real customers through other surveys and real research of customers and their experiences to, really define what it is that we're building. Then it only goes to ideation around, okay, well, what's it going to look like? And if we take the empathy, the definition, and then combine it into an idea, again, whilst the customer is side by side with you, then you get to a product, essentially, which then from ideation goes into prototyping, and then prototyping into implementation and testing. And then that whole process starts again. So it's like
based on the user feedback.
Yes. So it's like an infinity loop. I mean, IBM's very famous for their, they call it the loop, the way of design thinking. And then there's different ways. There's not a specific structured way of how you implement design thinking. Everyone's got their own methodology. But those are the main principles that you focus on when you create product. And we try to adopt that. It's not always that easy. Like sometimes you just want to go from empathy to prototype and leave the stuff in the middle behind. But if you really do it well, you do focus on all those 5 touch points. The other thing that's important is to get buy-in from the broader team. So these things are normally done in small teams, so you can iterate quickly and make changes quickly. But it's important to get developers and your team that's actually going to implement the solution part of even before ideation already, to ensure that the outcome is aligned. And that's always sometimes a little bit of a challenge. But 90% of the time we get it right, I think.
No, I mean, it's a great point, right? And it maybe segues into another topic I want to touch on, but I want to just reinforce the point around you can't build with empathy if you don't have context around what's building, right?
Yeah.
How your devs who are building this product are ultimately going to actually know whether it is going to work or not, or have empathy for the end user if they don't have context around why they're building the ultimate vision is.
So it is very important and to get that buy-in and collaborative energy, I guess, as well.
Awesome. So, I think so much that you've shared there, so much that we've unpacked, and I think we would continue down that route. But I also want to kind of share with the listeners a bit more about, culture, people, high performance, maybe starting off with, the world of recruiting at a startup, right? How do you recruit the best people? How do you retain talent? Both things that you've got.
I think culture is super important there. So we've been fortunate in the sense that a lot of the people that started in the business around the time that we started EasyEquities are still part of the business, So we've got loads of people within the business that have been with the business in excess of 10 years. So we've got that institutional knowledge that we've built up over time. It could also become Achilles' heel in the sense that you rely on those people and you don't really nurture new talent. But we have tried to do that. And I think it gets easier when you become when there's a slightly more established brand. So it's very hard when you're a startup and you have to, like, someone has to come in with a hope and a prayer and like, am I going to get a salary next month? And then, attract talent in that way. It's become easier for us over the years. EasyEquities is becoming a bit more of a well-known brand within the space, especially in the fintech space. And I think people that aspire to work in that space might migrate towards those brands and want to contribute to those brands. So it's becoming, I guess, slightly easier, but acquiring and keeping talent is hard though. So especially if you look at the engineering space, I mean, there's such a shortage of engineers. And also that was part of the reason why we started to focus on how can we expand on our engineering capability just beyond South Africa as well. And hence why a big portion of our engineers are actually sitting in our Manila office. And there is an amazing talent pool, fairly untapped, to be honest. They all speak really well English. So the Philippines is, most Filipinos are fluent in English. The only thing is a little bit tricky is the time zone. So they're 6 hours ahead of us. So that makes things tricky. But the workforce, the dedicated and skill sets that we've unlocked in that region has been super powerful for us. So yeah, we keep on harnessing that. And then I guess when you create a culture for these employees that is a great place to work for, they attract other good talent. So talent attracts talent at the end of the day.
Referrals become
so they have got a really good guy might have a good mate somewhere else, and when they talk about their experience within your business, they become a marketing force or a sales force for new talent essentially as well. So that's another thing that we've leveraged as well. So I mean, the way that culture works, I guess, has changed significantly since COVID. We always pride ourselves as a business with incredible culture, and it was hard to maintain that post-COVID. But you just have to shift the mindset around culture a little bit. So we do things. We've become a very much hybrid workforce as well. Pre-COVID, obviously, everyone was in the office. And saying that, we actually already started to adopt agile working as a concept. So agile principles is very much core of our business business culture as well. So pre-COVID, there was some elements of agile that we already adopted, which helped us in COVID. But fully hybrid, there's some challenges that comes with that as well. We try to address it with technology. So things like Slack, it's almost like everything has to be on Slack. There's a hard, fast rule in the company. If it's not on Slack, it didn't happen. It's that kind of thing. It's a bit like Strava, if you think of exercise. But so we had to, adopt technology and ways of engaging in different through different methods as well. And you have to work much harder when you're in this hybrid environment to maintain a culture. So we do things like digital quiz nights. We do town hall meetings at least once, or try to do it at least once a month, maybe once every 6 weeks. And because information flow is one of the biggest things that you need to address, and keeping people informed about, what's happening within the business, which is something that came slightly natural when people were all in the office, that is much harder to work at when there's people that are hybrid. So, I mean, I think culture, I'd like to say that our culture, we've maintained the culture that we've had pre-COVID. And it is super important within the business, but it is much harder to get that done, especially
being a lot more deliberate.
Yeah, and especially when you've got employees in different continents
and time zones.
Yeah, and because it's not just geographical location; it's a cultural difference as well. So culturally, Filipinos are much different to South Africans. I mean, we've got our own cultural diversities that we deal with locally, but then we add another one in the mix, which is so. Yeah, you have to be, like you say, much more deliberate about driving a good culture within a business like that.
Awesome. So I think there's a lot more we can unpack, but maybe in closing, if we talk to this culture of innovation, which you've continuously delivered on? What is that one thing less from a product perspective, where I think you've spoken to that in the example with Easy Properties, but from a people perspective, how do you push your people to continuously be innovative?
So I think the future of innovation is going to be underpinned by AI. I mean, like AI is really the key to future innovation. So what we're doing in our business is we want to get as many people as possible in the business to adopt AI, but not just adopt AI, actively use AI to enable them to become more productive and effective within the business. And we're encouraging it through things like we've just, yesterday in our town hall meeting, we discussed creating a competition where we want to reward users or employees within the business for coming up with AI innovations, not just AI innovations that could be applied to our customers, but within the business. What can we do using AI to be more effective within the business? So, yeah, I think the future of innovation is definitely going to be unlocked through AI. And in fact, financial services as an industry, AI is going to be disruptive, massively disruptive in that space. So that's why I think, where we drive innovation in the business, not just from new products to customers, but also from effectiveness within our existing
questioning the way that you do things, right?
Yeah.
Be more efficient continuously.
Yes. And because AI is moving so fast, you have to constantly engage with it to make sure that you keep up with it. So yeah, it's super exciting though. Like, I think it's gonna, not just for our industry, but for all industries. And anyone that haven't gone that route of adopting AI, I implore you to go and seriously have to do that.
Yeah, it's amazing how many businesses are so scared of it, right? And what is for my data.
Even in our business, that's why and that's why we're not forcing but we want to start almost forcing them because they are scared to adopt. I think there's a misconception of employees thinking that AI is going to take their jobs. Let's not. It's basically someone using AI is going to take your job.
Going to give you superpowers.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Almero, thanks so much. I think really kind of a playbook in building a business, product innovation, building culture, and a lot more. So thanks, you. Really appreciate it. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks. It was a good chat.
Awesome.